Very good. Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Education meeting, November 7th. Before we get started, just a little housekeeping. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the school districts of the Chatham Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the time, date, place thereof posted at the Board Administrative Offices, sent to the clerks of the Chatham and the Chatham Township and Chatham Borough, the Library of Chatham, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, and the Star Ledger. Thank you. Would everybody stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good movies out now. Okay. Thank you very much. I do not have any opening comments except to say that we're waiting for some of our elite singers to show up, so closer to 8:05 I might stop the meeting and have some board president comments then. And if it's okay with the board, if they come in their full contingent, there's going to be 18 members of the chorus, so if possible, maybe 9 can stand up here, 9 can stand down there, and if we wouldn't mind jumping to the gallery. This way they're on camera and everybody in the viewing audience can see them as well. You okay with that, Matt?
Matt wants to
Are they serenading me, or what do you
They're gonna rock. You're gonna be shocked. Very good. So just moving right along, superintendent's report. Dr. LaSousa.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. I have 2 items under my report. The first is just to advise the board that we have executed our memorandum of understanding or agreement with the police. I met with the Chatham Borough and Chatham Township Chiefs of Police a couple of weeks ago, and we are in full communication and dialogue like we always are. This is just an annual advisement. There's no action that needs to be taken by the board. I'll also tell you that we are making steady progress in transitioning to a security protocol with the acronym of ALICE. We've discussed this at certain times in the past, but it essentially stresses survivability over accountability and gives our staff more options in terms of how to respond to an emergent situation. So that's going well, and we're working with both of our police departments to make sure that we're fully up to speed and updated on security protocols to keep our students and staff safe.
And is that memorandum of agreement take into account the new ALICE protocol, or it's
No, it's more about our reporting obligations to the police if we suspect that there might be criminal activity that has occurred in our building, and their reporting obligations if they suspect that criminal activity they're dealing with could impact the schools or the operation of the schools in some way.
Very good. If I could just ask a quick question on the ALICE then. So you're working in conjunction with the police that the new protocol is, as you said, survivability, so if you can get out kind of thing, whereas before it was kind of hunker in place. So you're working with the police so that they know if they see somebody coming out a window that it's not a bad guy, it's a good guy looking to flee a particular area.
Right, and we'll be working with them on our evacuation and other drills so that we have practice and coordination and the rest as we move forward. And then the second item underneath my report is the annual report on the graduates. So we just had, of course, another successful class graduate from Chatham High School back in June. And to give that report tonight, I'm going to call up Doug Walker, who is one of our assistant principals at the high school. Excellent. Doug.
Thank you. Welcome aboard, Mr. Walker.
Doug, you got to use this. Okay, thank you.
I got to tell you, that's a great tie.
Oh, thank you.
You wore that just for tonight?
It's
Picked it up, didn't you?
No, I pick out my own ties.
You're a braver man than I am.
Thank you. Please forgive my voice. I'm suffering from a terrible cold, and it's definitely impacting me in my speech.
Glad to hear them.
That if you could just take a step back.
Yeah, it's been a few days now.
Cough this way. Breathe on the guy with the...
So I'm here to report reporting the graduates in the class of 2016, and I have a few slides prepared that I'll speak to going through this presentation. So the first item that we took a look at was our post-high school plans, and in the class of 2016, 95% of our students have continued on to four-year colleges, and 3% two-year, and less than 2% other. A visual of that over the past 3 years remains fairly consistent, hovering around the 95%, and you can see the other percentage points moving down the chart. One of the things that we did that I started last year and continued again this year is we broke the senior class up into 3 tiers, and those are GPA bands. So this, which we called Tier 1, represents students with a GPA of 3.95 and above. That represented 94 students in the senior class, and out of those 94, 100% of them have gone on to four-year universities. In Tier 2, which you can see is a GPA of 3.39 to 3.95, again, it actually equaled to 94, 94, 94 when I broke it up into 3 tiers. 99% have gone on to four-year colleges and 1% to two-year in that band. And then in our third tier, which is a GPA of from 0 to 3.38, the number of percentage is 87, 7, and 5. So I wanted to give you kind of a reference in terms of number of students that fall into these bands. So out of the class of 2016, you have the GPA bands at the top, and then the number of students that fell into each of those bands. So even though our third tier represented 0 to 3 and change, we had only 8 students below a 2.5, and you can see the numbers in each of the bands there. This slide is really kind of highlights our success in a variety of areas in terms of, we looked at the Barron's rankings of universities, so the most competitive, highly, very competitive, less non, and special other, and the GPA ranges of students who were accepted or attending these universities. And you can see a really nice disbursement in terms of GPA ranges at all the levels.
At Harvard.
When we looked at those competitive categories, again, this is another visual and percentage of students attending each of the categories of universities. 80% have attended the top 3 levels, and you can see the breakdown of the numbers here in each category.
This slide, I think, screams volumes. This is my favorite slide. It's, I mean, 80% of the kids are going into the top 3 tiers. Mm-hmm. And this is acceptance or where they actually decided to go?
Where they're going, yeah.
So even some of the kids that got into some of the most competitive chose to go into maybe highly or very for, you know, a variety of reasons, mm-hmm. Economic, location.
Absolutely. And this slide really speaks to that when you
Right.
see students, those GPA bands, and they're
Right.
making choices to go to schools for particular reasons.
Right, so if you have even a 2.5, you're going to a very competitive school.
Yeah. And some are special circumstances. Sometimes
Sure.
it's
No, I
for
get it.
certain hooks that they have into those schools, or athletics, or sometimes it's interest.
But it
in the
highlights how
program.
many opportunities the students have,
Mm-hmm.
of such a wide variety of opportunities they have at any of the GPAs that they're achieving.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's just, you saw a visual in terms of percentages. This is number of students, so it just broke down the number of the students in each tier and how many students we were actually talking about that attended each of the competitive levels of universities.
And again, this is placement. Some of these kids were accepted at higher tiers and chose.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And a visual from each tier, looking at the same data. So just to give you some examples for some of the schools that are in each of the categories, I just listed a few, some of the more popular schools that represent each of the competitive categories according to the Barron's rankings. And so here you have the most competitive and highly competitive, some of the schools that represent them. And then the very competitive and competitive categories, just a small sampling of the over 4,000 schools that exist in the country. In terms of placement by region, still fairly consistent each year, with 63% of our kids staying on the East Coast and 10% in New Jersey. And then you can see the breakdown moving down the chart. In terms of public versus private, again, we had a 35% of our students that attended public and 65% that attended private. So we saw a little bit of an increase on the private over public in the past year. This slide gives a lot of data. So we had 2,169 total applications in the senior class last year, of which 1,247 acceptances were given. 697 of them were early action, with 473 of those accepted. 77 were early decision, 38 accepted, and 14 were early decision 2, with 8 of those accepted. So the average student in the class of 2016 applied to 7.69 schools and got into 4.48, which was a 66% average acceptance ratio for the class of 2016.
Sorry, Doug, so 300, roughly 300 graduates sent out 2,100 applications?
Mm-hmm.
The counselors are processing all those?
They are, yeah, and sending,
Requests and-
sending transcripts and
Right,
the
so for
letters of
each-
recommendation.
My comment is just related to that each application equates to N number of times a counselor has to send out a vast number of documents, or whether it be physical copy or electronic, depending on the school.
That's right, yeah.
And how is the bandwidth with the Common App has made it so easy to apply to, instead of 5 schools, 10 schools?
Yeah, and that's been, the number of applications has increased across the country because of the Common App. The Common App's been a big motivator to that. It made it very easy for students to apply to schools versus the old way, which makes more schools receive more applications, which makes them perceived to be more selective. Right. So it's a kind of, they like to see more applications for that purpose.
Forgive me for not knowing this, and you may not know the answer, but how many counselors do we have helping the 300-plus students submit over 1,200 applications?
6.
I'm sorry, say
Six.
it aloud.
6.
2,100 applications.
2,100 applications.
21, please forgive me. 21, what was that, 10 years ago?
6 counselors.
5 years ago, it was much smaller, wasn't it?
We probably had 5
5.
years ago. We probably had 4, I would say, 10 years ago.
That's my question on the bandwidth. With that many applications, do they really have the bandwidth to process? I know they're doing it, but
Well,
Yeah.
we're going to have 378 or 9 8th graders now who are going to move to the high school next year. This is an issue that we'll have to discuss further when we are,
Hence the reason for my question, as
Yeah.
to why I think we're undermanned in that regard, by just looking at the number of schools that the students are applying to, and I just don't know if that seems to be an issue that we're a little short on, along with counselors and trainers, but
It's
Not that
a
issue.
significant tack on their time.
It is.
And it comes in a very short period of time, too.
I can appreciate the whole Common App makes things a little easier, but students are relying upon the counselors, and I just don't know if we have enough counselors to help the demand.
Yeah. The early action, early decision has probably put a little more pressure because those deadlines are even quicker.
Yeah, and it kind of spreads it. I get that concept, but you're applying more early, but at the end of the day, you're still
Still a lot.
6 counselors with the responsibility of that many applicants. That's a lot to be putting on their shoulders.
Well, I think you should look at it as maybe 50 students. So not, there might be students that aren't applying to 12 schools, they might only have 5 students, so.
yeah, I'm just looking at the 2,100, and each application has to add a minimum 3 college recommendations and a transcript. So that's 4 artifacts times 2,169 that somebody has to process. Regardless of how many students, I'm just looking at 2,169 times minimum of 4 artifacts that have to be processed in a timely fashion, or we then penalize the student.
But how automated is it? I mean, in terms of the transcripts?
A lot of them, they have to be sent snail mail, right?
Both, yeah. Some are more automated than others. There is a process, and they have to also double check and make sure everything is perfect before it goes. And it comes at the same time where they're conducting their senior conferences on top of that too. So they have these 5 or 6 appointments a day. So it's a very stressful time for them. I can say that for sure.
Okay, well, we'll just have to circle back. I know this is a report of the graduates, but it highlights certainly a concern.
Sure. Yeah.
One question I'm curious about, if you don't mind. Do you track, or does the administration look at and ask students or their parents what percentage of the kids applying to college get outside help from the school district? So these coaching places, I mean, there's several, I don't want to mention names, but I'm curious if that's a trend that you see, students are utilizing more.
Yeah, we haven't tracked it statistically to get, specific data, but from my speaking to the counselors and just listening to the pulse, it appears that it's increasing. But I'm speculating a little bit because I don't have hard data to confirm that.
Anecdotally, I can tell you that absolutely they are, in terms of the various institutions that are out there, in terms of.
And that's a policy decision as well, because if these are tasks that were traditionally done by public institutions, and now increasingly they're being, farmed out by parents who can afford it, that's a policy issue. You want all children to have the same opportunities. So, which speaks to the fact that more counselors down the road within the high school is not a bad thing.
But it's probably all Darren's fault. Hello, Mr. Crow.
Yeah. We okay on this slide?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, thank you
That's
for
okay. No problem.
sidebar.
So I broke it down a little bit more to give you an idea on acceptances, because I gave you the average here, which was 66%. But I looked at number of applications, how many students were in those categories, and what their percentage to 10 range is really where we aim
sweet
for,
spot.
is the sweet spot. That seems to be where we're also finding the most success. When we look at the schools in the categories of most competitive and highly competitive, one of the things that we took a look at is we wanted to kind of get a feel for, where our kids are applying within these categories, and are they putting applications into a nice breadth of schools in those areas, and looking at the internal competition they're creating for each other as they're applying to the same schools. So in the most competitive category, what I found in last year's class is that we had at least one application to 81% of them, but 19% of them did not have any applications from Chatham High School last year. In the highly competitive category, that margin widened, and we had 61% of the schools that had an application from Chatham High School, and 39% that did not. So one of our areas of focus has been to increase the awareness of schools that are not typically applied to in Chatham, but still as competitive. So we've increased the number of college visits that we have. We had about over 125 schools come in this year for visits, and so we've increased the breadth on that. We've also put together a number of slide presentations that we're showing on our website, also pushing out on our television set that we installed in the school counseling office called Did You Know?, where we're giving facts about universities that are not necessarily on everyone's list, that have interesting things that might intrigue students to take a look at them. So we've added that. We also put out a newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks about the upcoming visits that we've been pushing out to parents, and in there we highlight some of the schools that are coming in that are not typical ones that everyone maybe would be thinking about, and trying to just build some awareness on some of the schools that are in the same category. When we look at it, some of the schools that are not in the category we're applying to, they're not on the East Coast. Some of them, they're West Coast schools. It could be distance, it could be regional concerns, demographic reasons on why they're not choosing to go there. But we are trying to increase the breadth there.
But Doug, you also have had some success, because that graph was 55-45.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So you brought in the institution, or maybe not you have, but that class brought in insights on it and able to apply.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's terrific, because you always hear the same 10 or so schools that the Chatham kids seem to be applying to, and what I'm presuming what you're seeing is you're seeing Chatham kids going up against Chatham kids
Absolutely.
for certain seats, and if they apply to a school, St. Joe, pick a school anywhere outside of the the norm, I think our kids would have a better chance, because it's tough when you're competing against the person next to you.
Absolutely it is.
So there's a real effort in...
There's a real
bringing
effort
up
in that.
information regarding the Midwest schools and what have you. That's terrific.
Yeah, we're really trying to make a press for that, just so that it's not, we want them to not apply there, not because they didn't know, you know? They want to make sure they're aware of it, to understand it. And, you know, if they still choose not to, you know, that's okay, but...
That's the prerogative, but they need to know that there are some schools outside of the area, because I mean, you talk to the kids, they're always applying to the same, you know, 5 or 6 schools, and that's great.
And a lot, like, we increased our number of schools that came in, which has been over 125. We automated that process for the reps to be able to register to come in, and that helped really make it easier. Instead of having to call and find time slots, we did like an online scheduler, and they pick slots. And then we increased the number significantly, and we've been trying to highlight those schools that are coming in that are not typically represented by Chatham. So I looked at colleges receiving 30 or more applications, so our heavy hitters that come out of Chatham, and so number 1 on the list was Rutgers in terms of receiving the most applications, and these were our top and over 30.
Mighty Bison, represented. And the angry,
Hey, kid.
Leave that up for a second.
the blue hens.
Sure.
I just want to take a picture of it.
And, I mean, they're right in the 30s, so the same 30 kids are essentially stepping on each other continuously throughout this list.
Yeah.
A wonderful school, Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. Not up there.
Good. Okay. And these are schools receiving 20, above 20.
And this is also part of the profile, correct, online?
The profile has all the schools and the number of acceptances.
Acceptances, not...
These are
applied.
applications.
Got it.
Mhm. So then when looking at our class of 2016 and our AP scores and AP students, so we had a small increase in the number of students from 515 to 517, an increase on exams from 1101 to 1149. And although we've seen an increase over the last 2 years dramatically, we've still maintained an average of 3 or higher that hovers around the low 90%. And
Scoring a 3 or higher.
3 or higher, scoring a 3 or higher, yeah. The College Board AP Scholar designation, in this area, I showed last year and compared it to this year, and we have seen some increases, some dramatic increases on the AP Scholar, even on the National AP Scholar, and the descriptions of these designations are there. But it represents kids taking a number of AP courses and scoring well on all the tests that they take, and there's different categories and thresholds for those categories.
Doug, what do you attribute the jump up in AP Scholar with distinction from 86 to 114? Did we do something different that we can repeat in another area?
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
if it doesn't
Yeah.
jump out at you, no worries.
No, you know, I think most significantly has been the number of AP exams taken, and, you know, our scores have always been above decent, pretty high above 3, in a high 3 range. I think our average actually comes in, so I think it's just been related to the number of tests taken, and this class making its way up,
Right, okay.
as juniors last year and seniors this year, to 2
Okay.
large years.
So then we should see that trend continue as that we offer more and more AP classes.
Yeah, especially since our average score has been so consistent in
Okay.
that range, yeah.
So you attribute that to just the offering in large part?
And,
for
and,
example.
and course selection, more kids taking them.
Okay.
More kids filling their elective spots with AP courses over other options.
Okay,
You also have class size, because now the larger class in the high school are in the junior and senior year. So you have
Right.
more students to select.
to take those.
Are those students recognized by College Board, or are they recognized by the district, or is there,
Yeah, they're recognized by College Board.
what do they do, email them?
Yeah, there's like, they get like a letter, I believe.
Wait till our 8th grade gets there, those numbers should really pop.
SAT, these are the mean SAT scores for the class of 2016. It represents the old SAT scores. If there were students in this class who took the new SAT, they took the average if they took 2 or more and added them in there. Majority of our senior class had taken the old SAT.
Okay.
SAT subject tests, We had 98 subject test takers. The percentage of the SAT students who took the subject test are represented there. So CHS had 42% of the kids who took the SAT take a subject test. And our subject test scores compared to New Jersey and national are listed here.
Which one's us?
We are the first column.
Darkest, far left.
Yeah, the far left, sorry, yeah, the colors
Far
are blurring
left
a little bit.
column.
Far
In
left,
each
yeah.
stack.
Any questions? ACT, we've seen an increase in students taking the ACT exam, definitely a decrease with the change in the SAT in terms of number of students taking the SAT. Our SAT participation dropped almost 20% last year versus New Jersey and nationally, which hovered in the 1% to 2% range. So we definitely had a more dramatic, the old SAT and registration for the SAT in general over the year.
Got it.
I expect to see that rebound a bit more. I think there was just some concern about the new tests, and they've taken the new PSAT twice now, which is a model of the SAT. So we'll see how those numbers fall this year. But the ACT has definitely been a more popular assessment, and our mean scores on the ACT are there compared to New Jersey and nationally.
Why do you think that the ACT seems to be a more popular test than the SAT?
I think the big thing was the change in the SAT, and no one really knew exactly how it was going to be and how schools were going to interpret those scores and how they were going to use them to benchmark. So there was such uncertainty with it. Although the SAT now is much more like the ACT, the tests are much more similar. There's a lot of uncertainty with it. That's the feedback that I've gotten in terms of students.
People had a fear of not being able to prep for the new SAT because there weren't practice tests because it was new.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of kids that would prep, taking practice tests online or in books or with tutors or whatever, they didn't have that for the new SAT. So I think people were afraid that they wouldn't be as prepared because it was so, it's fear of the unknown kind of thing, you know.
But colleges are viewing them similar?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know the score's different, I get that point, but they're viewing the ACT and the SAT as similar tests?
They are, yeah, and they count them equally in terms of their weight and how they look at them, and they have concordance tables to be able to determine the comparison of the scores between the two tests.
Would you say that the majority of schools, if in fact they are test required, will take either one?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there
Yeah.
really are, I mean, I don't know of any schools, but I don't know if there are any out there that say it has to be the SAT or the ACT. They'll really take either one.
Yeah, they'll either take a standardized test or they'll be a test optional school.
Right, got it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think the only difference is some of the schools require the subject matter
Yeah.
SAT,
So-
whereas that's the only difference where you have to sit for for that.
Right, if they require a subject test.
Yeah, but I think that's the only, the difference in terms of that.
And that has been somewhat declining in terms of schools requiring the subject test. We've been seeing that drop. And that's all.
Okay. I do have a question.
Sure.
What's the, and I've asked this for the last couple of years, in terms of, I see where the kids are getting in. Is there, and I know it depends upon the information you get back as to whether the kids are graduating from either A, the school they got into, or just graduating. I think that would be an important, getting in is one thing, but I think it'd be important to know what the track history is for the students in getting into the school as to what percentage is actually staying. And I can appreciate you really need to get that from the families and the students. I'm presuming you agree with that statement.
Yeah, it's self-reported.
What can be done? Because I think that would be very helpful to the students coming up, knowing that, you don't need to know the names certainly, but it's like, 10% of the kids going to the school will actually end up, 50% of that stays. And I think that would be helpful for the students going in. Is there an effort that can be done in terms of tracking?
The state does,
That's
on
open
the
to
report
everybody.
card,
That's not-
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
want to put you under the.
No, it's okay.
Looking at the.
The DOE told us that they would be tracking that and publishing it for us internally and on the school performance reports that they post on their website. But they started doing it in, I think, 2012 they use this.
Mike, when you say 2012, Doctor, you mean
Class of
that graduated in 2012? Okay,
They
gotcha.
started putting on the school performance reports when they changed from the school report cards to the post-secondary enrollment 16 months after graduation from high school. And initially, they had told us, at least in the presentations I attended, that they were going to track that, and we were going to eventually be able to see what our students were majoring in college, what their retention rates were, and what their graduation rates were. But they haven't updated that metric. It's remained 16 months for every class since then. So I don't know where the disconnect happened, but we were hoping to get that. We can try to be more aggressive about that. It's hard to keep in touch with the students.
Forgive my ignorance, but what's the difference between retention and graduation?
So the first metric they give is the 16 months out. So presumably then they might tell us 12 months after that, 12 months after
Oh,
that.
gotcha,
So you
okay,
know
gotcha.
How,
Okay.
how long it takes to persist in school.
Yeah, I wouldn't be so interested in the major, but it was just more of the graduation rate. And I just think it would be helpful, informative. for lack of a better term.
Yeah, there's a product in our Navion system, it's an alumni tracker that we haven't taken a hard look at yet. That's something that's been on my list to take a look at. Again, a lot of Navion's is self-reported.
I mean, that's only as good as the information you're getting in.
That's right, and so it's hard to stand by it.
And the people leaving aren't so inclined to tell you that they left. I get that. It'd be a nice way to just kind of get an idea of, we get great numbers. We just like to know where they end up.
Do we have the capability of monitoring our graduates as they leave and see what percentage of kids get financial aid, and two, what percentage of kids take on debt to complete their college degrees?
Nothing that's reported to us in terms of the personal information, if they were eligible for funding or not.
Yeah.
It would have to be a self-reported, again.
The reason why I ask this is there's now a growing dramatic debate of the value of college, and basically looking at the debt some of these kids are taking on, and the amount of time it takes them to repay that debt, whether they're capable of repaying that debt.
Sure.
You notice that the status of national debt now, because the government is now taking it on from a student loan perspective, is growing, and it's a colossal financial disaster down the road. But that being said, where are we from the perspective of being advocates to, learned to, the outlook for vocational schools for our students, right? I know for a fact now that in the next 10 years, we need 3.5 million jobs that will put people into the high income.
Well, we have brought in some vocational schools. I know Lincoln Tech was in, I think, not that long ago. We do bring those schools in for those kids that are interested in attending them. We do the career interest surveys, and our sophomores will meet with Mrs. Beatty, our college career assistant, to kind of explore areas of interest. So if it comes up in that area, that's an area of interest for them, we would explore that. But other than that, we still have our part-time VOTEC program for kids that know that path right away, and they actually leave school half day to attend for those types of trades.
Those figures that we saw today, how much of that was vocational?
That would be the other category.
1%.
Yeah, less than 1%. Very small number.
I mean, not every 3.8 student is going to want to go to a high-end school, maybe.
That's right.
I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off on that. But to get to Matt's point is, there's a lot of pressure for the kids to do well in terms of schools and grades, but there are other options, and what opportunities, are they being told of those opportunities? And I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Sure. Yeah.
You're the person with the microphone, so I'm going to ask you, what other opportunities are we providing? Not necessarily, I mean, it could be for any student. It could be for a 2-2 or a 4-2. Somebody that just wants to go a different path. I mean, what opportunity, are they at least being advised as to, following up on Matt's point, that there are those other alternatives? I mean, are we doing anything just?
Yeah, well, I could tell you what we do. We have conferences every year with their counselor that we consider to be mandatory meetings with the counselor, parent, student. So it starts in their freshman year and it goes each year. Freshman year talks more about acclimating to the high school and getting just your academic journey through high school. But from the next one on, we start to look at your your career aspirations, your areas of future study, things that interest you, and start to put together a plan there based on that, by your interests. So depending upon where the conversation goes, the counselor will direct them towards, you know, those career tracks, those resources, what opportunities are there, and then may have them go directly to Mrs. Beatty, who is our college and career counselor, to start exploring what options exist there. Then we also have a variety of elective courses that we try to expand their breadth of experiences in to really kind of explore some of these options. You know, they might be a bit of a stretch in that they could be more engineering and design, not a typical auto shop or electrical, which we haven't, you know, we really haven't seen in our school as I've been there since I've been here. So we'll explore those options there. To the extent of what we do in that area, it's probably where we're at right now, is trying to explore where their options are, where their head's at, where they're thinking, what they're interested in, and then trying to vet that with them through the counseling process, and then moving them on to the college career assistant.
Basically, where we could do a better job and be at the forefront would be educating the kids as to what the opportunities that are out there and what the potential is in these job tracks. These are ridiculously high-paying jobs in fantastic companies, and they can't find people to work in these situations. So maybe we become better at advising people about what's out there versus just, you know, how do we do and tell our kids, if this is available to you, these are careers that are available to you. You don't have to think about a four-year school, but this career, you know, if you go this way, here's your potential earnings. And I think a lot of kids don't understand what tracks they need to take to achieve certain end game. So I think they all sit there and say, I have to be successful, I have to go to a four-year school. But that may not be correct anymore.
That's true.
So how do we, you know, teach them? I mean, there's a kid in Chatham that played lacrosse and he played hockey here, and I coached him forever. And he went to college and wasn't really into it. And then I finally asked him, like, what are you doing? He goes, well, I actually became a plumber. And I think he was originally kind of taken aback and didn't want to tell me that. And I think he was thinking as though he was embarrassed because he was a Chatham grad and became a plumber. But I was more than proud of him because that's a fantastic, high-paying job, and he's going to build a great business out of it. So it really struck me at that point is, what can we do better from a school to make kids realize that A, it's okay to go into a vocation, and B, that being in a vocation will give you the opportunity to put you in a very good financial track, and potentially in a situation whereby you're not taking on college.
I think probably the same campaign that we used for building awareness of the breadth of universities is the same approach, like multiple variables of PR. So how can we get some of that information out to kids? And, you know, just as much as I can send out a did you know about why XYZ University is something to take a look at, so some of that data on some of the career paths and vocational paths that are in demand and, you know, are successful of getting some of that press out to the kids as well, through the same mediums, through the same newsletters, adding it, things like that to our presentations, and, you know, just educating the counselors more on other options, but putting data behind it.
You know, that video that they're running for the counseling office that we discussed potentially being in other places, you know, maybe there's a slide that comes through that is, you know, other opportunities.
Right, average earnings
Just
for
like
other.
we're trying to advertise some of these schools that are outside
Sure,
of that list.
just
of
other options.
20. Yeah.
We did a similar when we advertised schools that had the greatest return on investment and how that list differed greatly from, you know, the top ranked, you know, and just getting that information out. At the end of the day, you know, we just make sure they have the right information to make their decision, and if we're not giving them enough, that's, you know, we need to make sure they have it.
You used the term counselors when we were just talking about helping the students. Are we talking the same sex?
Six.
Oh, same six, yeah, same six.
So we are still.
We'll help you out with that. Same six.
Same six counselors, yeah.
So we're still saying the same sex.
Same six. And then
So
Mrs. Beatty, our
perhaps
college career
circling back
assistant.
to my point where I think we're understaffed in that regard, that we have, these same six counselors are helping the seniors and juniors applying, are also helping sophomores and freshmen.
That's right. They have mandatory conferences with all of their kids every year, and in that process.
I made my point in terms of, I think we're understaffed in that regard. If we have this six group of counselors who are helping students get into college, are also being put onto their table or their plate, trying to provide guidance to, I'm made my point, thank you.
And it's just going to get worse though, Rich, you know.
Oh,
The 8th grade has 376 kids, the 7th has 364, you know.
hence the reason why I made my analogy.
Yeah, the college process is really only one small portion of their job, so it takes up a lot of it, but they
Very
have
small.
a very small when you
If you're
in the big
talking
realm.
freshmen, sophomores,
But it eats a lot of their time.
Matt, that was a great point.
So Matt, find money for more headcount in finance.
I thought my point was very good too.
Also, to the same point of not every student necessarily is going to a four-year college, we deal with this well before they're applying for school. We look at kids and the course that they take. We have open enrollment, so we don't tell students you can't take AP courses. We don't tell them they have to take AP courses. We talk to them about a healthy balance. And inevitably, you see the AP numbers because there's a pressure from the home front, whether it's from friends, whether it's from their peers, that they must take this course load that is going to prepare them for, they don't even know that because they're years away from it. So we see what you're talking about with opening them up to greater experiences or greater opportunities. They're doing that in 10th grade, in 11th grade, when they're taking 4 or 5 APs, when they could take additional electives that are not weighted, that are going to really satisfy an area of interest versus a grade point average. And for whatever that reason is, as much as they're counseled by their counselors, as much as we talk about it in class meetings or during our program studies, they are choosing, selecting, or they're along with their parents selecting this schedule that has them needing 25 hours in a 24-hour day. So we deal with this well beyond just the college. And I would say I give a lot of credit to Doug and the council department and Megan Beatty. Most schools in Morris and Sussex County, they have 3 mini college fairs a year. They don't invite schools in the way we do. They don't have 125 schools in the way we do. So we provide so many opportunities for kids to see things they would not otherwise see, and also provide opportunities that weren't there last year. Last year we had 90 schools, now it's 125. And it is a range of schools, not the same schools that are always coming in. So I think there's opportunity there. I certainly think we could provide more information, whether it be vocational employment that they're not necessarily a 4-year education. But at the end of the day, they're going to make their decision. We have a student last year who was top of the class, not top of the class, had a 4.7 GPA. She went through very competitive. She was very competitive.
Least competitive.
At least
Less non.
because it was an area of interest for her, program that's big. That's the mindset we want every student to have, and every family to have. And we want you to know what you're interested in, what you're having, what you're going to see in the future, not what's, the stick on the back of your car window. So I think the council's doing a fine job making sure that all their information is out there. At the end of the day, they're making their decisions as to where should go. But sharing more information is important about those other pieces as well. Something that we'll add, moving forward.
I'm certain, gather what you're saying, but I'm not being critical of the counselors. My point is, I think we're understaffed in the counselor position. If we only have 6, I think we need much more than that.
We're asking them to do more, not just on the college
100%
front.
I understand.
Yeah, I
But
think, yeah.
my point is, we're understaffed in that regard, because I think there are a ton of students, and I met one who was a terrific student and is now working as in a field he did not think he would be in, because he didn't think that was appropriate. Now, that's not the school issue, I think that's more of a society, community issue, but I think if we have opportunities to let the students know there are other alternatives, and that just comes from having more counselors at hand, which gets to the point I've been taking all along. I think we're understaffed in that position and have been for quite some time, and that situation is only going to get worse with the growing students.
I think given the level of service that we provide
Yes,
is
I'm not
really
being
key.
critical of the service, I'm just being.
That's why we
I
are.
think we need more.
Right.
And when you look at the other high schools and I look at the average student to counselor ratio, you have to take into consideration the percentage of kids attending 4-year schools in those schools, because the higher that number, the more work on the counselors. And then the level of service that we provide with the conferences every year, with the counselors attending the college visits, with the number of letters they're writing, and that's where they really get overworked in
They're
comparison.
overwhelmed, which is why we need more. I haven't made that clear.
If, you know what, let's table this for our budget conversation. We have a bunch of students, I just want to get them home as soon as possible. They've been waiting about 15 minutes for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Darren.
We had a very special accomplishment recently in our performing arts department, and I'm going to ask our new music and choral teacher, Mr. Bryson, to give us just an introduction to his group of performers that he has here and what they've been through in the past few weeks, just in case you haven't read it in the Tap or the Courier or any other place.
Okay, good evening. Tonight, our select choir from high school is going to be performing for you. And recently, just as of 2 weeks ago, we were asked to go to, we won a competition to go to Carnegie Hall and open for Foreigner. And we were one of 5 choirs that were selected to do this. And we went, performed, and then we actually won the competition and won $5,000 for the music program at the Chatham High School. So we're very, very proud of that. And we had about 3 weeks to put it all together. I picked, Matt Marquet actually told me about the competition he heard online and said, could we do it? And I said, sure, let's go for it. And picked the song, I arranged it for him, and we learned it in about 3 weeks and submitted our tape for acceptance into the competition. And the rest is history at this point. So they will be singing for you Somebody to Love by Queen tonight.
Somebody to love. They cheered for us a lot. It was kind of funny, like my parents said, like during all the other acts, and nobody really cheered. But during ours, like it seemed like the whole Stern auditorium was just applauding and enjoying it.
From the moment that Jacob did his first two notes, and then the choir did theirs, the audience just erupted and was kind of, not saying we had it in the palm of our hand the rest of the way. I mean, it really was. We just fed off of it. It was really. Select was brought up to the center stage, and the other choirs came around and they got to sing I Want to Know What Love Is with Foreigner at the end. So.
You guys are very much.
I think we should end the meeting right
Well,
now.
that's what Lotta and Ann just said. That is a tough act to follow.
That was ridiculous.
And on a high note, Doc.
It's ridiculous.
That's
And if you
impossible.
go to YouTube and Google Foreigner Chatham High School, you'll see the at least the one song, the I Want to Know What Love Is. It's awesome.
Can't imagine he did any better than he just did for us right
That-
now. And
That's amazing.
That was ridiculous.
3 weeks. in the making.
Ridiculous.
That was 3 weeks. It was like.
Yeah.
3 weeks to practice. I went to ask Mr. Bryson. I could shoot him an email. How long does it take to arrange that type of song? I could ask him, but
Apparently less than 3 weeks.
no, they rehearsed for 3. He could have been working on it for years.
7 years ago when Billy was in middle, so I recognize him.
Oh, really? Well, he's brand new to us, though. Yeah.
Outstanding.
Wow,
I think he coached Billy.
Yeah, he was coached in the area. Yep.
that's fantastic.
So I have nothing else to
So
report.
you're going to make Peter follow that? Wow. Okay.
And no, even though I've been listening to that song since it came out, I would not attempt at singing it for you. I just want to report that Dr. LaSouza and I have begun meetings with the architect and various proponents in the district to begin the planning process for the referendum project. So far, we've had meetings at Cougar Field to discuss the bleachers and at the high school auditorium about that renovation. Tomorrow, we start discussions with the group for the STEM addition at the middle school. That's all I have for right now.
If I may?
Sure, absolutely.
When do you think we'll be able to provide some information as to the timetable of the projects? I've been asked questions at various functions and activities. Not necessarily
Yep.
advocating one group, just when are we going to start? And when do you think we'll be in a position to let the public know this is what we're going to start and kind of give them an idea of the progress?
So we have a preliminary timetable already. Tomorrow morning, we have an 8 a.m. meeting with the architect, followed by a 9 or 10 meeting, depending on when the 8 o'clock one wraps up. And Ms. Weber, at least, will be joining us to review with the architect that preliminary timeline, because we gave some feedback on it a couple of weeks ago. And then our hope is to finalize and structure it so that it's ready for posting on the website and, displaying on the walls and so forth.
So perhaps by the next board meeting?
That's
At least
a good goal.
A
Yep,
preliminary assessment as to, okay.
yep.
Yeah, and we do. And Rich, it'll kind of look like this. I know this is a little wacky, but it's got my chicken scratch on it. But for each project, we'll have the major milestones and the duration and the end time. Again, it won't be taped together like my copy, but we will be able to get that to the board and out to the public pretty soon. We're probably going to have 5 concurrent projects going on at the same time, so we just have to be diligent in the details.
Good.
And you're welcome to have this copy if you want, because I'm hoping to get a new one tomorrow. Excellent. So Peter, we're starting at the middle school, is that correct, tomorrow?
Yes,
Okay.
at the middle school at 8.
Very good, thank you. Okay, excellent. Does anybody have any additional questions for Mr. Troquillo? Any other construction items that we need to be aware of?
The only other one I'll say, if anybody has not been down by Washington, the driveway or the neighbor that took over part of the driveway from the borough has completed a good chunk of his work. He's done his, put up a fence, put up trees. I know that he was scheduled to do blacktop and then put down some sod. I don't know if that was done at the end of last week or that'll be completed this week.
Okay.
The place is starting to shape up very nicely, and everyone that has seen it has been very complimentary, and I think it finishes the school in a nice way.
And you were working with for additional trees along the new parking lot? How's that going?
I will follow up with maintenance. I know Pat Carroll from the Borough Shade Tree Commission was supposed to be planting those.
Oh, okay. Planting them,
He gave a diagram, and the spots were along the driveway and along the parking lot and along the sidewalk of Washington Avenue. He was
Okay.
gonna put in approximately 6 to 8 trees, Mike? Something
but
like
he'll
that.
work with the maintenance staff as to...
Yes, John Cataldo had worked with him as to where they were gonna go.
Okay, because they have to maintain them and mow around them. Okay, perfect. Excellent. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. DePaul? No? Or Dr. LaSousa? No? We're going to move on to committee reports then. Personnel is up front. Ms. Clark is doing parent-teacher conferences for her day job, and Ms. Ciccarelli, you don't have the report, you're moving the items.
Correct.
Personnel hasn't met, I don't know when they're meeting next, but we'll get back to you on that. So curriculum, Ms. Kenny?
Yes, curriculum has met twice since our last meeting. It met on October 9th, and we reviewed the report on graduates, which Mr. Walker just did this evening. And we just met this evening. We met with the CMS and CHS principals to review the program of studies. And both principals will be presenting their recommendations for next year at the next meeting publicly.
Okay, which will probably be moved to Washington Avenue School, right? That's one of the on-the-road.
It is.
Just, yes?
It has been.
Yes, I'm just reminding the board members, so that when Rich drives all the way up here and then has to go all the way back down to the borough.
He will be very bitter. So let's make sure we remind that idiot.
Duly noted.
Yeah, if you could remind us all that the location is changing for the next meeting.
Particularly since I was the one that suggested it.
Excellent. Moving on to finance and facilities, Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes, we met on October the 19th. We discussed the referendum projects planning, which Mr. DeQuillita spoke to. We discussed the sailing club. The sailing club, like many other clubs, is completing its third year. They are now back at the district looking for funding. This is a budget item, so we will look at this as we move into the budget season. We are finalizing the facility use signs for our fields as to what they will say when people walk in as they try to use them on Sunday mornings at any other time, of which if you guys want to see them. What the wording is going to be, just let me know or let Pete know. He'll gladly send it on to you when it's finalized. We spoke about the solar panel installation update. At this point of this meeting, we were supposed to be done by the end of October. And Pete, did we hit that goal?
I believe we have.
I believe we have. So we are going to achieve savings of around, I thought this number was what, $11,000 a year? I thought we were getting higher than that. For the next 15 years, oddly enough, I did drive by like 17 times, and I still can't see them from the road. I did my best to not crash and try to find them, but I couldn't. And then last but not least, we just, again, spoke to the facility use of Cougar Field on Sundays by non-approved organizations, and as far as we know right now, the unauthorized use has ceased after our intervention. So our next meeting is November something.
12/5.
December
5th.
Okay, well done.
December
December 5th,
December 5th.
5th. Okay, great.
of which I
And
might
we'll
not
be
be there.
at Media Center.
I might be in Hong Kong.
Okay. All right, policy and planning, Mr. Franz is not here, but I don't believe they've met, is that true? They have not met, okay. So we're moving on to the liaison reports. Mr. Connors for the borough,
Nothing to report as related to the Board of Ed.
thank you. Chatham Township, Michelle's not here, but Matt, you,
Yes, well, there's nothing to report. They did ask us to remind the community and the district as a whole that there is the Gobble Gobble Turkey Trot set up for the morning of the 24th. There are fees, a 1-mile family run of $20 per person, and then a 5K race for $25 a person. And since its inception in 2009, the Turkey Trot has raised more than $80,000 for the Chatham Township Volunteer Fire Department and the Diabetes Research Institute. Last year, they had more than 950 registered runners and raise $24,000. So hopefully everybody will get out there and make an attempt to run or walk, more walk in my world. But you need to register before November the 8th at 12 p.m., which is tomorrow, in order to receive a T-shirt, and there will be no exceptions on the T-shirt.
There you go.
I'll run if you run.
It's a tight ship. Run before you eat your turkey. Very good. Moving on to the Performing Arts Booster Liaison Report. So, oh, I'm sorry, you had a question?
I would like to talk about the Chatham boosters, Chatham High School boosters, or you want to just blow over that?
I wanted you to finish on that. You were going to be the closer.
Okay, then go right to the performing arts.
So very quickly on the Chatham High School Marching Band, just congratulations. They've completed a competitive season at High Point Solution Stadium on the 22nd of October with a third place finish. And the band will celebrate its season achievement at their annual banquet on November 14th. In mid-September, we just heard the Chatham High School Select Choir. So I have a long write-up here, but Mr. Bryson arranged that song that they sang and practiced it for 3 weeks. And they took home a $5,000 grant. I don't know if that was mentioned, from the Grammy Foundation. So what a fantastic performance and great experience for all of those kids. And congratulations to the Chatham Middle School and Chatham High School singers who successfully auditioned for the Morris Area Honors Choir. The students presented their concert on Mischief Night, October 30th at Parsippany High. And just a quick reminder that the high school fall play, which entitled You Can't Take It With You, will be presented November 18th and 19th, with a senior citizens performance and dinner on the November 17th. Tickets are available through brownbagtickets.com, which you can get to from our website, or at the door, of course. And the holiday concerts are coming up December 1st through the 23rd. And some of this stuff I'll read at the next meeting just in the interest of time. Moving over to the Education Foundation, Ms. Kenny?
Yes, CEF held their annual fundraiser for Trivia Night on Saturday, and I'll have a complete update for the next meeting.
Oh, perfect. Excellent, very good, thank you. Recreation, Mr. Gilfillan?
Oh, nothing to report.
Did I mispronounce that?
No, I just, they are tentatively set to meet tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night?
Every second Tuesday of every month, and they are going to try to dial that back because they don't talk about it.
Okay, perfect. I agree with that, dialing back. And last but not least, our closer, Mr. Connors, for the Athletic Boosters.
The athletic boosters met on November 1st.
They donated on that night about $20,000 to the Chatham Athletic High School programs in terms of assistant coaches, in terms of videotapes, in terms of stipends. It is amazing what that program does. And they also announced, in addition to the $20,000 that they donated on their annual fixed income expenditures is $54,000 as to what they give to the Chatham High School and the athletic department. It is amazing what that organization does, and I'm not trying to elevate them over the boosters, the music boosters, or any of the other boosters, the theater boosters, but it's amazing what they give, and I sound like a broken record, but I'm going to urge that, you know, those of you who have high school students who play any athletic sport, please help, contribute, show up, pay money. It is incredible what they do. And there are ways you can contribute towards the athletic boosters. There's a fundraiser, it's called the Cougar Super Bash, which is January 28th, which will be at the fishing game. And then they're also doing something over the Christmas holiday, the Christmas break. It's the Cougar Classic, where they raise money, and they have a big basketball tournament for both boys and girls. And they're giving money towards a local charity. I mean, I know I sound like a broken record because I constantly play that up, but people, please. They're looking for support in terms of showing up at the snack shack or showing up for anything, and also money. Just help them because they're helping our students in a way that the administration can't. And what I'd like is at the next meeting, one of the issues that popped up, Dr. LaSouza, is what I think the term was necessary. What is necessary in terms of the definition with regard to what the school, what the administration should be paying towards the athletic programs, the coaches and whatever, and then the boosters are supplementing. But the question they asked was, what constitutes necessary? And I believe they're going to be approaching the administration, if not, if they haven't, they will be doing shortly, as a better understanding as to what the administration should be paying as opposed to what they can be producing, providing, so.
Well, and I think especially when it
Heads up on
comes
that.
to safety and concerns of enough assistant coaches and enough athletes per coach ratio. You know, I think a lot of times we look at some of these sports where they're paying for, say, we're paying for one assistant coach, and then they're going to the boosters for these other assistant coaches. And in a lot of these sports, you know, it's really more necessary than just a one.
I segueing into that would be, for example, with regard to the track team, which I think is the fastest growing sport in the high school. And just in terms of the numbers, I know we're getting up there, but I don't know what the definition is of necessary in terms of what we should be providing and what we can rely upon. But again, it's just more of a cheerleader with regard to the boosters as to what they provide, and I hope people start helping them in terms of manpower hours and then financial contributions. But your point is well taken. And there are issues that go beyond that in terms of safety. So I think we need to be looking at that. And I can appreciate we got to get that in the queue. But that's something that the counselors, I didn't mention that already, and then also the trainers.
So you don't think we have enough counselors?
But that's on the boosters. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See, that's why I want you to be the closer. Any other questions for any of the committee reports or liaison reports? Seeing none, I would like to make a motion to pass the minutes of the public session on the 10th and the public and private sessions on October 19th.
I'll second.
And is seconding both of those. Mr. DeQuilla, you're going to have to help me out on who needs to abstain.
Ms. Kenny needs to abstain on the 10th, the public session on the 10th. Mr. Arnick and Mr. Connors abstain on the public and private session on the 19th.
Okay, fantastic. Would you do a roll call then?
Sure. The minutes of October 10th, Mr. Gilpin.
Yes.
Mr. Arnick.
Yes.
Ms. Chigarelli.
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Ms. Kenny.
Abstain?
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Motion passed 501. The public and private session of the 19th, Mr. Gilpin.
Yes.
Mr. Arnick.
Yes.
No, abstain.
Ms. Chicarelli.
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Abstain.
Ms. Kenny.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda minutes passed 402.
Does that pass then?
Yes.
It does?
It doesn't need the full board since it's only been.
Oh, very good, thank you. Okay, excellent, thank you. We have our first opportunity for public commentary, and just to mix it up, the live mic was there, we'll have to move it. I'll move it back over. Oh, thanks, Peter. If anybody has any comments they would like to make to the board, we'll also have another opportunity at the end of the meeting if this one's not appealing to you.
Good evening, Jane Devlin, Chatham Township. Before I begin with what I wanted to address, I have to say I went to Carnegie Hall that evening, and if you think those students sounded awesome tonight, they were off the charts at Carnegie Hall. And I have to echo what one of the children said when she said the audience erupted in cheers so much that it was drowning out the students for a minute. It was such a wonderful experience with the outstanding acoustics. And a number of people in the audience were parents and family members of the competing groups. And they were on their feet cheering for our students. So it was really something that I treasured, being able to just be there and supporting them. And they were off the charts. Like our students are off the charts in practically everything they do. I am really so pleased to be a part of the Chatham community and a part of this school district of the Chathams. So what I want to talk about tonight, please never think when I come up and advocate on something that I'm presenting it in a negative way or complaining or in some way not losing sight of everything our students are doing with such positivity. And it's hard for me to come up here now after such an accomplished presentation on the impressive stats regarding our students' high achievements and lofty college goals and step away and want to focus on something a little bit smaller. But it has to do with well-being, and it might not be big on bells and whistles like everything else that preceded me coming up here tonight, but I still don't think it should be overlooked. So if you could just bear with me.
Sure thing.
Thanks. I'd like to go on record expressing disappointment that homework was assigned to the children on Halloween. You know, adults say we don't want to rush the kids to grow up. Kids, especially nowadays, are exposed to too many issues too early, often beyond their scope because of social media. Recently, I read an article that I'll say the Victorian notion children are mini adults and should be treated as such before they are developmentally ready is harmful to them. Yet, here was an opportunity to just be a kid. Halloween only comes once a year, and it only falls on a school day 5 times, Monday through Friday, once a year. What harm, what setback academically? I doubt that 80% of the kids going to the 3 top tiers of the college figures would have reduced that much if the teachers had passed on homework on Halloween, particularly at the middle school where there's merely a handful of years left to go trick-or-treating. Apart from not having homework hang over their Halloween festivities, a break from that day from homework would have sent the message to the kids, we get it, we get you. Instead, homework dampened what otherwise should have been a frivolous joie de vivre childhood day. So I do not mention homework at every Board of Ed meeting anymore because I didn't want the issue to become desensitized and the group go deaf to the topic. As well, we as a district did make some strides in the area of homework, and those adjustments should have been given a fair chance to settle in. So again, I didn't mention it at every board meeting. However, recently it seems some slippage is occurring, and to that I would respectfully request administration and the board call their attentions. Once more, there seems to be a lot more homework on weekends and never weekends where there is no assignments, so that schoolwork is 6 to 7 days a week. Projects seem to be assigned by subject teachers with due dates all close to one another. I'm curious how that is balanced and what measures are in place for interdepartmental communications so all the districts, all the disciplines don't pile on the work at the same time. Thanksgiving is fast approaching. Wouldn't now be the time for teachers to be reminded if the plan during the holiday break is to be no homework? Shouldn't Thanksgiving time be for family, respite, rejuvenation for all students and the school staff alike? Shouldn't the teachers be reminded if projects are assigned, there was a timetable cap on certain due dates around the holidays? I thought that was established last year. Now, I'm not pronouncing teachers are violating all that. I'm only suggesting steps are taken so that everyone, K through 12, is on the same page for the upcoming holidays. Sometimes the teachers may just forget, or they get behind on lessons for whatever reasons, and then sort of double down on assignments. That happens, but can we work to minimize an overload? Also, the students are told to go to the principal vice principal, or perhaps a guidance teacher if there is an issue concerning homework and a teacher. Well, as nurturing and wonderful as our teachers are, and they are, and no matter how much a principal's door is open, and our principals do maintain open doors, the tweens or the teens may find that just too daunting to do. There's a natural imbalance of authority between staff and students. Gee, even some parents, some adults are reticent to broach certain topics with teachers and administrators. So I think the time is now, before a holiday, in the event no homework is the plan, to make sure everyone is on the same wavelength, rather than after a holiday, a principal saying, however genuinely, someone should have come to him or her if there was a concern or a problem. And for that matter, in closing, I think from time to time, perhaps once or twice a marking period, just some sort of quick check-in about homework as it relates to student stressors and well-being should be done, maybe at a staff or supervisor meeting. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Devlin. Are there any additional public commentaries, Mr. Heath?
Good evening. Bill Heap with the Chatham Jaycees. We are back for number 49. It's in motion. The Christmas tree sale will start the Saturday after Thanksgiving, which I think is the 26th, and carry on through the 21st or 22nd of December. We can always use volunteers. If anybody's interested, they can contact me. And we just hope that everybody will take advantage and buy a tree. We certainly do not like those artificial trees. We have to discourage everybody and anybody from buying one of those. So, thank you.
Bill, what's your age minimum for volunteers?
Age minimum.
Without breaking any laws.
Like any high school students, would you say are eligible, 14, 15?
Yeah, high school, certainly. Okay, and we can use adults too. It's great to have high school kids. We need a couple of adults there just to keep order and to make sure that things don't get out of hand.
One more thing, Bill.
Yes.
I know you've mentioned it in the past, but the organization you're with here is?
The Chatham Jaycees.
There you go.
And how much?
The money that you raise will go to help fund what?
The emergency squad, we have a high school scholarship for a senior. We give to various PTOs, to the ECLC, to the fire departments.
Scholarships?
Churches, the high school scholarship.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
So the money you're raising, you give back into the community in various areas, correct?
All goes back. Again, minus our beer money, but most of it that would be 99% of the money we collect goes back.
And y'all have been doing this about, how many years now?
Well, for the tree sale, this is number 49.
Thank you for all you've done, and thank you. Hopefully people will contribute.
What's your email so that people, I mean, if you want to say publicly, so that it's,
They can reach me at, let me give you my phone number. It's easier, 973-635-6134. They can get in touch with me.
A little slow.
973-635-6134.
Got it.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks. Good night.
Thanks, Bill. Any additional public commentary for this session? If not, there'll be another opportunity at the end. Seeing none, we're going to move on to the action items. Personnel, in Ms. Clark's absence, Ms. Ciccarelli, would you mind?
I would not mind. I'd like to move action items A1 to A24 for vote.
Second.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions on personnel for Dr. LaSousa? Ms. Grant particularly loves questions.
I just want to acknowledge Margie Murphy, the superintendent's secretary, who has been in the district for quite some time and has seen a number of superintendents come and go before me, and she's just
And you're the one that broke her?
I'm the guilty party. But of course, I wish her all the best in retirement. She's been a a terrific resource here in the district for a long time, and I hope she's super happy and enjoys living the dream.
I have to tell you, she's been terrific, very kind over the years. When any board member has called and asked questions, she's been very helpful, and she will be greatly missed.
And she always knows it's us when we call. She must pay attention to her.
Caller ID.
That's why I call from phone booths.
Right, perfect, so she'll know who it is. She's great.
Extend
Will do.
our
Yeah, wish her the best.
well, best wishes. She's terrific.
Yeah, well done, well deserved. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Great to do that.
Any additional questions on personnel? I've covered mine. Seeing no additional questions, Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind?
Agenda items A1 through A24. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 6-0.
Excellent. Moving on to finance and facilities, Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes, I move action item B1 through B26 on your regular agenda.
Second.
We're back to the season of donations. One is a donation to the Robotics Club in the amount of $580 for a number of different things for the architectural design. Acceptance of the Chatham Education Foundation grants equaling $2,300 for a number of items at the high school as well as Washington Avenue School from aquaponics. No idea, but sounds good.
I can tell you what that is. I had to Google it.
Is that what, like, reading underwater?
It's fish. It's yeah, fish swimming in a tank with algae, and you use the waste of the tank. Very cool. I think you need one for Christmas.
Actually, my company does that. The PTO donation at the high school in the amount of almost $5,500 for student-inspired art piece for permanent display at the high school. That should be interesting. As well as a 3D printer for the technology department, and then Milton Avenue School donations in the amount of almost $6,000 from the Milton Avenue School PTO for items for the faculty lounge and then items for their indoor recess. As per usual, I'm sorry, one that we actually hold near and dear to our heart, the old Chestnut Scholarship donation. The scholarship is in the amount of $3,000 for the Yale Chestnut Sportsmanship Award, the Beta Johnson Leadership Award, and the Beth Kuhn Clark Scholarship.
And Gail was a teacher here back in the district and really propelled women's sports forward. I think Mr. Connor's wife, didn't she play under Gail Chestnut?
Yep, they coach for the girls field hockey team back when it was the Chatham Township and the Borough. Two separate school districts, and they would regularly win the states.
She was quite a figure. Excellent. Any questions on finance or facilities? No additional questions? Moving on to curriculum. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Agenda items B1 through B26. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 6-0.
Very good. Sorry about that. Now moving on to curriculum. Ms. Kenny?
Yes, I'd like to move action items, I'd like to move agenda items C1 to C4 for action.
Okay.
We're all squared away on the CUSAC report.
Yes. Once the resolution is passed, we will draft the certified resolution and submit everything through the county and the state via the home rule.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Does anybody have any additional questions for Ms. Chase? Could be a lengthy question with multiple parts if you choose. No additional questions? Very good. Mr. DeQuilla, do you mind?
Agenda items C1 through C4. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 6-0.
Fantastic. I'm going to move policy in Mr. Franz's absence. So I'd like to move D1 and D2 on the agenda in policy.
Second.
And I just have a quick question for Dr. LaSousa on item 2, the random canine searches, and if Mr. Connors would help me out here where I go astray. This is an arrangement with the Morris County Prosecutor's Office to do canine searches at the high school,
Yes.
and we've done this obviously in last year. Is there any difference between last year and this year on this particular item?
No difference, they just need an annual resolution.
Okay, so we'll see this annually.
Yes.
And if there's any differences in procedure or process, you'll let us know or call
Yes.
that out to us. And the other question that I have, I mean, typically, just to remind everybody, they come in the fall, they come in the spring. They search anywhere from 2 to 5 classrooms. Students are not in the classrooms.
Correct.
Their students' backpacks remain in the classrooms.
Yes.
And they conduct their search, and they're in and out within an hour, correct, or less?
Last year, they were in and out within 15 minutes.
Okay.
And no student ever even saw the dog.
Right.
So we choose the classrooms or other area, media center.
Do we choose
wherever
it,
might-
or do they choose it?
We do.
Okay.
At random, but we've tried to hit like one in each part of the building and one, roughly to correspond to each grade level.
Okay.
And then a bank of lockers, probably about 100, 150 lockers. They come in, so we evacuate the students from the room that the dog will enter. And the students go to either the media center or the auditorium or some other place. And then we just bring the police officers bring the dog through, and hopefully the dog doesn't find anything, like was the case last year, and then they leave.
Okay, fantastic.
And this is all pursuant to the AIG Attorney General guidelines, and that's really run by the county, and we have really nothing to say with the protocol. We're just doing what they're recommending that we do.
Exactly. And if they get a hit, it's a police matter.
Yeah.
It's a criminal matter. It's not anything. We don't have
But we're just
influence
adhering
over how we handle the student.
This protocol is pursuant to the Attorney General guidelines and the local prosecutor's office, right?
And the memorandum of understanding and everything else.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions on either D1 or D2? If you want to circle back to a complex curriculum question for Ms. Chase, we can do that as well. You're good? Seeing none, Mr. DeQuilla on the policy D1, D2?
Sure, agenda items D1 and D2. Mr. Gilpin.
Yes.
Mr. Arnick.
Yes.
Ms. Chigarelli.
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Ms. Kenny and
Yes.
Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda items passed 6-0.
Excellent, thank you. We have our opportunity for board business. I have just one item that I'd like to bring up, not for necessarily resolution, just for maybe future thought, and I'm going to, Mr. Franz, as the policy chair, had mentioned that maybe the board would like to discuss, or given the general election is tomorrow, 2 of our schools are voting places. 2's not so bad, it could have been all 6, but it's not. Is there any tolerance or any appetite to, potentially have professional development that day, and shift some of our schedule around, maybe close the schools just to, limit the amount of traffic in the schools? Nothing that I'm looking to resolve today, just wanted to throw it out there for thought. The state, Dr. LaSousa, the state kind of dictates where our polling places are.
The county does.
The county, same thing.
So we have
Not us.
requested that our schools not be used for polling locations, but we have not been successful in realizing that request.
Right, I'm just, just as from a safety concern to having, the doors open and traffic in and out, and it was just a concern to have, a number of people. And some districts just closed for the
Yep.
day, I don't know how many, but again.
We did that one time years ago, but I don't think we've done it since.
No, but if we can stack some of the professional development in a different manner and schedule professional development for the general election day, and not use a couple of those half-days. Again, not looking for resolution, just throwing it out there as food for thought for a future policy meeting.
I actually think that's a great idea. I know every 4 years you're going to have a bigger election than others, and next year I know we have the gubernatorial election. But just as a matter, it's always been a little disconcerting with the number of people coming into the schools. I think that's, I'm sure I don't know if this is subject to a collective bargaining agreement or what, but I think that would be an outstanding idea if we could do something on that day other than, maybe give the kids a lot of homework. No, I'm just messing with you. Just do something, but I think the schools.
See, Rich is paying attention.
I don't think that's a bad idea. Is if we have to use the schools as a voting place, and we can't kind of cordon it off, and it's gonna, I mean, according to either statute regulations, they have to be open from like, what, 3 to,
6
6 a.m. until,
8 p.m.
9.
yeah, I mean,
6 to 8 in New
that's a lot of traffic through
Mm-hmm.
the schools, and so I think Ms. Weber's idea is a great idea. Come up with something.
Park. Are they parking at the high school?
There's, no high school.
The two schools
Washington and
used,
Milton.
being used right now, only the borough uses the schools on election day for a non-district election, and they're using Milton. They're using Milton and Washington. I have been working with the borough clerk and the county head of elections to no longer have, effective 2017, to no longer have elections at Milton and Washington, and have the borough solely use the middle school main gym, since we can fence it, well, not fence off, since we can isolate it, and it has its own separate entrance. The one big plus of Washington this year, thanks to Christine Dudlow working with the borough superintendent, the county elections gave her the approval to use the new gym, so that they can,
Go in and
with the
out.
exception of someone who needs the ramp, they can go in the entrance right for the gym. The gym can be segregated so that the people will not interfere with any of the children. So the biggest issue that I'm working on to eliminate elections is at Milton School.
Okay.
So if I have to relinquish that we have an election at Washington and the middle school in the future, to me, I've made a big accomplishment. The goal is to just have it at the middle school.
Although it,
Time will tell.
you know, although Washington Avenue has, what, 428 kids? So, I mean, that we're not using the gym for the day.
It's,
not
no matter where
optimal.
they go, it's an inconvenience,
Yeah.
but it's less of an inconvenience because the kids basically either have to have indoor recess and gym if it's non-weather, you know, if it's a bad weather day, but at least they can get out and function and operate and move around the school as normal. At Milton, it's a real inconvenience because election is in the multipurpose room, which we know has 6 different hats, and it's used basically probably 7 of the 8 periods during the school day. So
Right.
that is a big inconvenience at Milton. Plus, there's just no parking.
Right, and I'm putting safety above inconvenience. It's the traffic, as Mr. Connors mentioned, that is disconcerting.
I'm sorry, do they say the number of this polling that we have to have, or they just say? Because if you're saying, because I know they do it at Washington, and you tell me they do it at Milton, can we just say we're gonna consolidate all the voting at just, and I'm just using this for purpose of illustration, the middle school?
We don't get to make that decision.
we're-
We've put in the
we're Delta
request,
Hand and
and
we gotta
they're
play.
trying to work with us. Yep.
So we're Delta Hand and we gotta play.
They've requested the middle school.
The borough also uses the Methodist Church, so there is a concern that they have too many districts locating, or too many voting districts in one location.
Yeah.
Or one central location.
And meanwhile, I go to the firehouse and I've got 10 houses.
Yeah, just something for, you know, maybe a future discussion. We could kick it around. We have a year before the next general election. But if we can, when we look at the calendar, which is, I know, set, but if we can juggle some of the professional development, if the board
No, I agree.
believes it's worthwhile looking at. Does anybody else have any additional board business that they'd like to discuss? Mr. Connors?
No, I had something about curriculum, but no,
It was a multi-part, complex question.
very complicated.
Any other board business? No? We have our second opportunity for public commentary. If you'd like to come up, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and signing in. You coming up as an alter ego or same?
Not with the J.C.'s. Doctor, I'm wondering if you can explain a little bit more about the Canine Search Program, who initiates it, how that came about, and what they found last year?
Sure. Morris County Prosecutor's Office has been offering this resource to all school districts in Morris County with a high school. They only do it at the high school level. And so any school district interested, and I know the year before last year, about half of the high schools had taken part in this or participated in this process. You reach out to them. The local police department is the point of contact. So for us, it's Chatham Township because the high school is located in the township. And then working together, we identify a date and a time where they arrive at our school. We follow the protocol, and they conduct a random search of certain areas of the school for drugs.
So the date and time are random?
The date and time we select and don't tell anybody about.
Okay. And what did they find?
Last year, they didn't find any, there was no positive hit.
Mhm. And
If
how
there
many-
is a positive hit, then they proceed with, a typical police investigation and search, and they go through the legal process.
How many years have you been doing the program?
This is the second year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional public commentary? We will be going into executive session. No action will be taken at this time,
No.
and we will then convene. No action will be taken, so I make a motion to move into executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Second.